Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bloggers Creating Courses, the podcast where you go behind the scenes of creating, growing, and scaling an online course. Now, for this episode, we're doing something a little bit different. We are going to be a fly on the wall for one of my one-to-one coaching sessions. Because as part of my business, I offer 2 one-to-one coaching packages. The first option is a one-off intensive hour where we discuss anything related to creating, growing, and scaling your online course. The other coaching service is my Voxer coaching, or Coach in My Pocket as I like to think of it, and this lasts for a month. To find out how you can work with me, head over to veritysongon.com/workwithme and you can book into one of my coaching services. Equally, if you aren't sure which coaching service is right for you, you can also book a free 15-minute discovery call where we will chat through the options to determine what's best for you and your online course goals. But for today's episode, I'm very thankful to the lovely Terina, who agreed to let me record her coaching episode and share it with you, my lovely audience, on this podcast. Enjoy. Welcome to Bloggers Creating Courses, the podcast which will take you behind the scenes of creating an online course. I'm your host, Verity Songon, founder and education consultant of veritysongon.com. I'm so excited to help you create an online course that you are proud of and to be part of your journey to scale your business as an online course creator. Let's get into the episode. First of all, Terina, I'd like you to just, because this is a podcast episode, so it is a little bit different to how we'd normally kind of do a coaching session there. But if I could just get you to just explain who you are and what your business is and what you're looking to create from an online course.
Yes. So I am a life coach and my ideal client is somebody who is maybe looking at their life and realizing that they've been playing by the rules and they're just not feeling satisfied with their life, and they're ready to live life on their own terms. They're ready to make their own rules and do just what feels good for them and kind of start living more authentically. So they're ready to break free of the rules that have been set by their family, by society, by religion, by anything that tells us who we are, what we're supposed to be, say, and do. And so I'm here to help people just discover who they are, feel more authentic in their decision making, and feel more comfortable speaking up about their decisions and their life.
I love that. There's so much about empowerment there that I'm just absolutely loving. Have you had any thoughts at the moment as to how you would like your course to be structured, what you would like in it, how you want to present it? Just have you had any thoughts whatsoever about how you want your course to look at the moment?
Yeah.
And it's okay if you haven't had any thoughts as well. That's also fine.
No, I've been thinking about it and working on it. So I've worked with a few different coaches, and I feel like I've really liked when we do a 6-month program that's every other week. So you're getting like 12 coaching sessions. So I feel like I like that structure. It gives time to let what we've discussed marinate and be put into practice. And I've worked with clients where I've done 12 weeks within 3 months where we're meeting every week. And so I think I'd like to shift more to the 6-month package. And then I was kind of thinking of like the core pillars of what I would like to have my course cover, and came up with self-discovery. So really kind of figuring out who you are, what your core values are, those type of things. Self-love and self-care is one pillar. And boundaries for another pillar.
Fantastic. So I'm just scribbling these down so that I can refer back to them there. I really like what you're saying as well about this 6-month program, and I also like that you said that you've tried it out with the 3-month as well. Did you find that it was a bit too intense doing it every week, or what's making you want to shift?
A little bit of both. Like, my clients really did see results. They were very happy. But I did find several times people would say, as far as things that they were supposed to be working on in between our sessions, they just didn't get around to it.
Sure.
Or like if I recommended reading something, they hadn't even picked it up yet or something like that. And so I feel like a little bit more time might give people a better opportunity to be able to really incorporate what we've been talking about during our session. And then I've worked with coaches both weekly and then every other week, and I personally have liked it better. So I'm just pulling from my own experience as well as I'm thinking of shifting into that.
Sure, I think that's really, really smart, because quite often I say to people, how do you like to learn and how do you like to receive information? Because if you don't like receiving information in a certain way, you're going to be quite reluctant to teach and deliver information in that kind of way. So I think that's really smart that you're basing it on something which you've had experience with, because then if your students do turn around and say, well, why is it every other week? You can say, well, actually, from my own experience, this is giving you enough time to really consolidate that information, to research the next step, to put things into practice and move forward. So I think that's really, really smart. And just jumping forward a little bit, you did mention about marketing copy as well. And I would actually put it within your marketing copy on your landing page, the reason for it being every second
Oh,
week, because for some people that will be a really real draw for them. The fact that you've got a plan and they can see quite clearly, this is a 6-month program, but this is what I'm getting every second week. I'm getting this, and this is the reason why I'm getting it. And from that, you can explain the transformation that they'll see as part of that. Because one of the difficulties or challenges that I see a lot of people making in marketing copy is they talk a lot about what the course is going to give somebody, but that's very much in terms of, you're getting this PDF, you're getting this amount of lessons, you're getting this, and this. And for a lot of people, they don't want to know how many pages they're getting in an ebook. They don't want to know how many hours of lessons they're getting. What they want to know is, what is that transformation at the end? So by saying you're getting a 6-month program, yes, you are telling them the direct product that they're getting, but what you can also say from that within your marketing copy is, in that 6 months, this is the transformation that you will be seeing. And every fortnight, every other week, these are the different transformations that you will be seeing. And you can explain to somebody then through your marketing how they'll be building up, because what you're explaining to them is that transformation that they'll be seeing in both a bi-weekly basis, but also on a 6-month basis as well. And really sell that, that transformation and that value that they're going to get from that transformation. So that was jumping ahead a little bit, because I normally like to work backwards and kind of leave the marketing copy until the end. But it is important, if you are thinking of that transformation right from the beginning, what I like to do is just start taking notes about that transformation, because that will feed into your marketing copy at the end there. So I do think that's really smart, because like I said, you've identified this time period, which is really key to what you're delivering there. So I really like that. So we've got the time period down. We've got these 3 pillars. From these 3 pillars, were you kind of seeing these as your modules?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then have you had any thoughts about how you're going to break those down into your lessons within the modules at all?
Yeah. So underneath those, I had identified different aspects of each of those that would be put into what we would talk about during week 1, week 2, etc.
Brilliant. That sounds fantastic. And have you thought about how they are all going to link together as well? Have you kind of got in your mind, well, this links into this, which links into this, which is why we've got them week after week?
Yes. So I
Yeah,
really feel like they're kind of building blocks.
brilliant.
So self discovery and discovering your core values and discovering what lights you up and what brings you joy and those kind of things really leads to figuring out how to really do self-care properly, which really leads to learning to love yourself for who you are. If you know who you are, then you can really love yourself for who you are. And then once you kind of have those good foundational pieces, then we work on how to set boundaries with other people as you're maintaining this identity that you've now identified as who you want to be and how you want to live your life. And so they definitely build one on top of each other.
I love that. You are, I have to say, you're a lot further forward than a lot of people who I speak to who are like, no, I've really got no idea. This is what I want to teach. I love what you're talking. We call that scaffolding. So you've got to lay those foundations first before you can start putting all the pillars on top, or the slats of the scaffolding. I'm waving my hands around as if I'm on YouTube. I know that you can see, but from a podcast episode, that's not going to make much sense, me waving my hands around. But you've got those foundational blocks, which I think is brilliant. And I love that you've thought about that journey as well. Some people find it quite useful to literally map out that journey as well and map out those building blocks. But what I would suggest as well, if you wanted to in each of the lessons, is you can do something called a link back as well. So when you start your new episode, when you start your next lesson, is this is what we did 2 weeks ago, or this is what we did last lesson. We're now going to build on it by doing X, Y, and Z in this lesson, because what you're showing your students is how everything is linking together. Because sometimes what can happen is, especially when you're laying the foundations, because there's normally quite a lot of work that goes into laying foundations of a course, and sometimes you as the teacher can see how it all links together, but a student doesn't necessarily see all of the links, and they might sometimes think to themselves, oh gosh, this is, where are we going with this week's work, if that makes sense. So by linking back and saying, yep, this is what we achieved last time, this is what we're doing, and then next time this is what we're doing, they can start to see how everything is coming together, and that you haven't just picked up a load of random topics because you thought that would be a good idea and it would fulfill their needs there.
So, question regarding that.
Go for it.
I was thinking of probably putting together some sort of graphic, maybe on Canva, to really map it out. Maybe put it on the website even, so that people really can see what we're going through, and then send that to them at the beginning of our time working together, so that way they can be prepared and understand where we're headed. Do you feel like that's a good idea, or is that putting too much out there?
I think that sounds brilliant. I love that idea. We know that not everybody, but we know that the vast majority of people are visual learners. So having that visual graphic to say, this is what you're buying into, assuming that you want to put it, a simplified version of it maybe on your landing page. This is what you are doing in a quick, easy, digestible, visual way, I think is a brilliant, brilliant idea. And sending that to your students, maybe they have a more in-depth version of it, or maybe it's exactly the same graphic. It depends how much you're kind of layering into it, but sending them to that at the beginning once they've enrolled, again, I love that idea, because it's telling people exactly what they're signing up for. I think sometimes in marketing copy on sales pages, we can get really bogged down with, here is the great longest list in the world of all of the things that you're going to learn. And for a lot of people, you know what we're like on the internet, particularly on our phones, we scroll. We don't always take into account information if it's in massive blocks. So having something that's bite-sized and visual, I think that's brilliant. You might want to include some bullet points in there. You might want to map out your pillars and have your pillars, and then have some bullet points within those pillars. But what I would personally focus on for that information is convey what is it that student is going to get out of each of those pillars. So you've got your self-discovery, who you are, and your core values pillar. What is it that your students are going to get out of that particular pillar? And you might want to pop down a couple of bullet points. So by the end of this module, you will ... explain whatever that transformation is in a few bullet points. And again, the same with your second pillar, self-love, self-care. By the end of this module, you will be ... this is your transformation that you're that you're seeing. But remember to always keep your student right at the heart of it, because it's them that you're not just selling to, but you're also educating and upskilling as well. So they need to be right at the center. They need to see from your landing page, your pre-course material, and in your course, that it's all about them and not you. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I would get on Canva and I would Canva that up. I'm going to trademark that sentence, but yes, I would definitely be creating. I'd definitely be creating something there. Yeah, I really really like that idea. You wanted to talk about course length. You said in your form there. We talked about the 6 month time frame. What else about course length was it that you wanted to discuss? Throw that question at me.
I think that was probably before I had really settled on the 6 month. I think I was kind of teetering back and forth, like, do I do 6 months? Do I do 3 months? Do I just do a 1 month program? Um, but I guess we could kind of take that to, do you recommend having maybe options that are different of using the same stuff? So maybe just to have a 1 month if somebody's not ready to commit to a you know, full one-on-one coaching package. Do you recommend having something kind of to offer people as an alternative?
I think that's a really good question. And my immediate thought process goes to think about how much work you can handle at this particular point in time, because it depends. I think if you're in a place where you've got an awful lot of time and you have got potentially a team behind you to help, you probably could go with a 1 month, a 3 month, and a 6 month program. But what I would say is you need to make sure that you've got the time to offer multiple different versions of your course and you're not getting completely bogged down, because there's also the admin side of it that needs to be, you know, kind of thought about as well. And then what you don't want to do is actually be offering so many options that your students get put off from signing up to anything because they don't know what it is that they want, if that makes sense. What you don't want to do is have your students arrive at a landing page and they're like, right, I know that I want to achieve what this course can give me, but I don't know what my time frame is, because they're coming to you as the expert in this because you know that they need 6 months, or that you know that they need 3 months or 1 month or whatever. So you run the risk, if you actually offer too many things, of not selling to anybody at all, because your student doesn't know, because then they're thinking, well, if I can do it in 6 months, why don't I do it in 1 month? Or if I can do it in 1 month, why don't I do it in 3 months? You with me there?
Yes,
What I
yes.
would suggest is, do you have access to your audience, either by like an Instagram following or a Facebook group or Twitter or anything like that?
So I am on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and I don't have a large following on any, but I do have a couple hundred followers here and there, so it's building.
No,
So
that's brilliant. A couple of hundred people is all that you need. What I would say is engage with your audience and ask them and reach out to them and gather some data of, this is what I want to put out there. How long a course would you like to see? 1 month, 3 month, or 6 months? And I wouldn't stress about only having, even if you only had 50 followers on the platform, to be quite honest with you, because I'm a big fan of, it's better to have 250, I don't know, whatever number it is, it's better to have a small following who are engaged with you and who are interested in your product than having 20,000 followers and none of them are engaged with you and none of them are your potential audience for, or you know, your potential students for selling. So I would be quite tempted to ask your audience and see what they want. I can see that you're already leaning towards the 6 month program. So maybe even just ask your audience, would you prefer this in 3 months or in 6 months? And see what feedback you get. You might get 200 responses. You might only get 5 responses, but use that information. It doesn't matter if you only get 2 responses, to be honest with you. It's still asking people what they want. And those 2 people, they might go on to buy into the course. Because also by putting those kind of questions out there, you're already starting people on a little bit of a marketing journey, particularly if you've piqued their interest and they're like, oh, I want to see what, where that goes, and I could be interested in that course down the road. But I can't talk. What I would also say is I don't see any harm in trialing different versions of your program. So that is quite a long-term route, particularly if you're thinking of, doing one at 6 months and one at 1 month. It might be that you want to trial the 6 month first, maybe run a 6 month program, get to the end of the 6 months, get your evaluations back from your students, and also reflect on how you felt that 6 month program went. And then before you open up the doors for your next program, that will give you an idea of the students loved it. They thought 6 months was brilliant. As a teacher, I really enjoyed the 6 months. Equally, you might get to the end and think, actually, the feedback is that the students felt like they could have had this delivered in a shorter amount of time. I think that it also could have been a shorter amount of time. And maybe for your second set of students, you try a 3 month program, and then you get the feedback from that. Now, that is 9 months worth of teaching then. So I appreciate that is a long-term strategy. But sometimes I do feel that you don't necessarily know the ideal length of a course program, particularly when there's a longer element to it. You don't know how long is an ideal length until you've actually run it. So I would be tempted to, first of all, ask your audience on social media, get some engagement going. And then I would suggest also running the one that feels best for you, because it'll feel best for you because you're the expert in your field. So you'll be thinking to yourself, well, already I'm thinking 6 months. And I keep going back to the 6 months just because you seemed quite passionate about the 6 months when you mentioned it before. So that's going to resonate with being the right time frame for you, because as I said, what's best for your course and how this transformational journey is going to look like for your students. So I would suggest running a course for that period of time that feels best for you, and then getting the feedback from your students, doing a bit of self-reflection as to how you found it went, and then before you run your next program, you've got that information for going forward. How does that sound? It's a very roundabout answer, I realize, but tell me how that sounds to you.
No, I like that. That sounds like a good plan. The way you were speaking did have another question come to mind.
Go for it.
You kept saying students in the plural.
Yep.
Do you feel like there needs to be a difference in course content for a group program versus a one-on-one program?
That's a really good question. And I would say not necessarily. Were you thinking, sorry, I made the assumption about students, plural. Are you looking at this to be more of a one-on-one program?
I've not really decided yet. It's
Okay.
kind of been kind of up in the air, but I do feel like I would like to do both. I feel like both could be really beneficial. I love the support that you get from fellow cohort members when you do a group program, and how that creates connection and support from other people outside of just me as the coach. But I do also feel like you can definitely dive deeper in a one-on-one program, and people can see a little bit more results that way. So I see benefits to both. So I don't know. I haven't really landed on one or the other, or if it is both and just do them, then the question is, do I try and run them simultaneously? Do I do them, alternating? So
absolutely. Lots of questions. I think they're really, really good questions as well. Which one feels more natural to you at the moment, a group one or one-on-one?
Thus far, my coaching has only been one-on-one with individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess more natural. That does feel more natural. But I love the idea of a group program. I was listening to one of your other episodes about working smarter, not harder, and I think a group program can help accomplish that as well. And then some of the other benefits I spoke of, you know, for the client themselves as far as participating in a group program. So, yeah, I guess I'm just wanting to do both, really.
It does sound like you want to do both, absolutely. And perhaps that's something that you can explore. Perhaps you could, I think there's a few different ways that you could maybe explore the idea. I think you could look at doing a 6-month program with just one individual. I think you could look at doing a 6-month program with a group of individuals. If you haven't run a program with a group of individuals before, I would suggest starting small. And the reason I say that is because sometimes people will say, oh, I want to, do a group program. I immediately have to recruit like 20, 30 students. But if you've never taught 20 to 30 people all at the same time before, that couldn't be incredibly, incredibly overwhelming, particularly like, managing all those expectations and what have you. So I would say if you're going to go for a group program, if you haven't done a group before, I would start small, maybe 5 as an absolute maximum. There's nothing wrong with having small groups because you're still getting that community, but what you're doing is you're also building up your confidence, and you can start experimenting with different groups as well. You might have a group of 4 for one cohort, but then you have a slightly bigger group, maybe 6, and you'll naturally, as you run more cohorts, you'll naturally figure out which number sits best with both you as a teacher, but also your students as well, and also the course material that you're delivering. You could also, another idea that comes to mind is almost combine the ideas. You could have a program which it is run over 6 months, and you do have a group, however many people that might be, but then you could also offer a one-to-one session within that 6 months. It depends how your timetable's looking, because what you don't want to do is then offer a one-to-one session and then be completely overwhelmed with all of these one-to-ones plus the group sessions plus, do you see what I mean? So I would say it's about looking at your time frame and what's realistic for your time frame for delivery. And on that note as well, when it comes to pricing, because what you don't want to do is try and cram so many things into the course that you're not making a decent amount of money, and you're selling yourself short, I suppose, is what I'm really saying. What we run the risk of quite often in online courses, and you see this so often, is that people put more and more and more into the course, but then what they actually do is they're giving away too much, and you're like, people will come back and they will pay for the additional one-to-one session if they want the additional one-to-one session. The fact that you're leaning more, you say that it feels more natural to do one-to-one, maybe go with a 6-month one-to-one session program and see how that goes. Or, as I said, if you wanted to open it up to a slightly bigger group, but don't feel that you have to go for, like I said, immediately 20, 30 students, because it's got to fit your audience. What feels right for you. It's your program. You've got to teach it at the end of the day. So you've got to feel comfortable with the amount of people that you're delivering to there. How does that sound?
Yeah. No, those are great points. And I have participated in group coaching where there was 15 to 20 people, but the coach was very experienced, decades of experience. And watching her, I was like, wow, she really facilitates this very well. And I do think that that's a good reminder and a good point that takes some practice and some learning to be able to get to that point, and starting small is good. So
absolutely. And it's remembering that some people have got a more natural affinity for talking one-on-one or for smaller groups, and some people have got more of a natural affinity for talking to larger groups. A lot of it depends on your personality, what you're teaching, how comfortable you feel, your past life experiences and what have you there. So you might find that actually as you go, you end up veering more naturally towards either a smaller group or a larger group there. But like I said, never be afraid to start small when it comes to your group numbers. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I'm just looking at your points. did you want to move on to one of your other points that you
Yeah.
wrote down? Yeah, or I don't want to feel like I'm rushing you through these points at all, but I want to also make sure that you feel like you've got value out of everything that you pop down on your
No, I
form.
feel like that's some really great information and some points that you've shared regarding like the size of the group and the length of the course. So,
Good,
yeah.
I'm pleased. You said you wanted to discuss about how you write the course. So tell me a little bit about your thought process there, about what you think I could help you with around writing your course.
Um, how detailed do I need to have it? Like I'm if I've got my pillars and I've got my points under there and I have my key takeaways that I want to be able to have for each week, how detailed would I need to have beyond that? Because it's just for me. And then, um, do I need to have some sort of handout kind of a thing for every lesson? Like, what is a standard expectation for? I mean, I'm sure most of it would be digital, but like a copy of something that they're receiving. Like, what are people expecting when they sign up for a course? Because I know that you had mentioned earlier, like a lot of people don't care how many books and chapters and handouts, but I feel like there might be some expectation regarding that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because yes, I did say that people don't want to know how many pages and how long and everything, and they want the transformation. But yes, at the same time, a little bit contradictory, but at the same time, people do want to know that they're also getting value for money. I completely agree. So I'm going to start with your first point there. First of all, I love that you're saying that you're going to give people takeaways, because that's huge and people need to know what they are going forward with and what you are actioning them to do. So I think that's really important. I wanted to pick up on that point because too often people don't think about what are those next steps that they want to give their students between classes, or once they finish the course or what have you. So I think that's really key that you've already picked up on that. To talk about the detail, I would say that depends completely on where your students are within their transformational journey. So if they are beginners coming into this, they're going to want a lot less information than if they've already gone through a course about setting boundaries and this is more of an advanced level. Your people so are your people going to be much more at the beginning? Is this going to be more of a beginner's course, or where are they on their journey?
That's a good question. I think as I've been writing it, it's been more for people that are just starting to awaken to wanting to be on their own terms. Yeah.
Sure. So what I would say is that beginners want enough information to get them started and get them going, but you don't want to go into so much detail that somebody then turns up and goes, I can't do this. This is way too much. I'm freaked out. I've done the first lesson and I've got no intention of doing any more because I I can't do this. This isn't set up for me. So what I would say is almost think of a skill you know nothing about. So I always think about knitting or crocheting because I know nothing about those things whatsoever. If I went into a lesson for knitting or crocheting, what do I need to know? What are the very fundamental basics that I need to know? I need to know what my equipment is. I need to know, I don't know, looping on or catching on, or there's some knitter or crocheter out there thinking, oh my gosh, Verity, you're an idiot. You never should have chosen this example. But you get my casting on, I think it's cool. There you go. But you get my point. I need those very, very basics. If you start talking to me in the first lesson about how to make a bobble hat, I'm immediately going to go, yeah, I can't achieve this because I don't even know what size knitting needles I need. I'm going to be out and I probably won't check in for the next lesson because it's at a level up here, which I just don't have that knowledge at all. It's ironic that we're talking about bubble hats and wool when you've already said that it's about 100 degrees where you are. But either way, so scaling back, and it's thinking about your course content of what do my beginners need to know? What are those building blocks, to go back to what you were saying before? What are those building blocks? What is that foundation of information that they need? And how are we going to progress their knowledge up so they've got enough knowledge to take them lesson to lesson, so they've got enough knowledge to give them that transformation, but at the same time they're not thinking this is way too much. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes great sense, and I'll definitely be mindful of that as I continue writing.
And what I would say as well is when it comes to detail, this is where beta testers are some of your best friends. And I would recommend seeing if you could find a couple of beta testers, particularly beta testers who have got no knowledge of what it is that you teach, because they will be the ones who will be able to give you that really honest feedback of, yes, this made sense. I went on a journey with you. My knowledge increased, as opposed to I got to lesson 3 and I was just completely lost because I felt like I actually needed to do a whole course before I did this course. That's going to give you great information as to where you're pacing, yourself. But what I would say with detail as well is it's important to remember that, particularly for beginners, as I said, it's making sure that you're not completely overwhelming them, and you don't need to brain dump everything that you know about the subject on them, because that's something I see quite often as well. Think about if you were the beginner, or when you were a beginner in your subject, what was the information that you needed and what was the information that you wanted, and that will start helping you give that progression. And think about as well, when you come back, we were talking as well before about by the end of this block, this is what you will learn. Think about those comments as well, and think about those bullet points of what is it that you want your students to learn. Well, how are you going to get them there? What knowledge do you need to give them to make sure that they're ticking off those points, and they can say by the end of the lesson or by the end of the course, yes, this is what I learned. Yeah.
Yeah. I find that helpful to kind of start with the end in mind. Like, where am I going? And then reverse engineer how to get there.
Definitely. It's so important whenever you're creating any kind of a curriculum. What is that end point or end goal that you want to get your students to? Because then you can roadmap it or reverse engineer it, whatever phrasing you want to use, but you can go backwards from that and figure out, how are we going to get there? What are those steps that I need to take as a teacher and that I need my students to take to get to that eventual and final point of where I want them to be. Yeah. Handouts. We're going to talk about handouts because I know you just asked about that as well. People love handouts. What I would say is 2 things. First of all, when you go into your lessons, I always like to encourage people to take their own notes if they're that type of learner. And the reason I say if they're that type of learner is because there are some people like me who I will not take notes when I'm in a lecture or when I'm in a class. And if you tell me to take notes, I will be writing something and you've moved on about 10 minutes later and I'm there like, my hand's got cramp in it, because that's the kind of learner that I am. I prefer to just listen and absorb. But there are some people who learn a lot by taking notes, and I love this.
For those just listening, I just pulled up my notebook with half a page of notes from our little time
That's
together.
Brilliant. And in comparison, just to show you, this is my notebook, which has got about 6 words written on the whole thing. But that just highlights the point of how people learn differently and how we engage with information and how we engage with, the spoken voice differently. So it really actually brings home that point there. But sometimes people need permission to take notes, because some people think, particularly if, we deliver so much online now, and some people in particular think if I'm not looking at the screen, if they think I'm not looking at the screen and I'm not engaging, they're going to think that I'm not listening. So sometimes people I know it sounds a little bit daft, but sometimes people do need permission to take notes. But equally, people need to be given permission not to take notes, because otherwise people feel like they have to be writing stuff down when that doesn't suit their learning style. So the first thing I would say is allow your students to take notes, because then they will pick up the key points that they feel are relevant to them, and they will jot down notes as suits their learning style, whether or not they write a thesis or only 6 words. completely up to
So
them.
could a good handout be a digital notebook that they could then take notes in?
I love that. Absolutely. And what I would say is, if you wanted to, is for each lesson, maybe just do a few bullet points, or maybe not even a lesson. You might find that actually it's the whole module that you want to do some bullet points on, or maybe you bullet point at the top of a sheet of paper and then you leave half of it blank for students to create their own notes. There's something very powerful about giving students the authority to write their own notes, because they're going to write down the information that resonates the most with them and what they feel is most valuable for them at that time. But as I said, if you're going through your course material and you think, actually, that is such a useful graphic or diagram, that's I've got a 5-step process here which I think is so useful, take that out and feel free to put that in a handout or a downloadable template or whatever, particularly if you're using step-by-step processes or you're using diagrams, because what you tend to find is people want that information in particular because they want to apply it to their own life. So you can either say, I've got this as a download, which depending on which online course platform you're using or Zoom or whatever you're using, it might be linked in the frame that you're using at that time, or at the beginning of the course you might want to send them a PDF or a Canva template or however it is that you'd like to create a workbook or handout, and then they've got that to go through the whole course with.
I love that. Oh.
Plus you then get to get fun on Canva, which is one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
How does that sound for the handouts?
I like that. I like how we kind of noodled our way to maybe a digital handout for the whole program that they can, it's almost a little journal-esque, notebooky, that they can do. That sounds simple, where I'm not having to figure out something to give somebody every single time we meet, but then they do have something that they could use throughout the whole course. So I kind of like that.
Definitely. And then you can use that for going back to the marketing copy. That's something that you can put on your landing page as part of your marketing copy as well, to say, you get this book so that you can then document your transformation. You can keep it afterwards and you can refer back to it afterwards to see how far you've come on your journey. Or I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but again, you're really selling that transformation that people are getting, and also the long-term effect that they're having, because they can look back at the work that they've done previously there.
Yeah, you just sparked an idea to have them do like an intake at the beginning and like a questionnaire at the beginning and the end. That way I could have that information to use for my marketing, kind of as testimonials, but also then they can see the difference from the answers to their questions from when we start to when we end. So
that is such a smart idea. I love that kind of thing, because like you said, twofold, you've got statistics and information for your marketing. 70% of my students came in feeling really disengaged and they didn't feel any self-love, or I was thinking off the top of my head using your keywords there, but by the end of it, 90% of my students understood how to implement boundaries in their life. You're showing that transformation, which is amazing from a marketing point of view, but also for your students to be able to look back on, because 6 months, 3 months, however long we're running it for, but 6 months is a long time, and to be able to have that reflection and say, yeah, this is where you've come and this is where you're at now, that's so powerful for your students. And if at any point your students are starting to feel disengaged for whatever reason, because let's face it, we all feel disengaged with courses that we take or what have you, you can bring them back to that first page and say, well, how far have you come? And it might be that you actually want to stick one in the middle as well, so then they've got a kind of 50% point that they can start seeing how far they've progressed and how far they feel that they've progressed as well.
Yeah, that's great to throw in the middle as well to help keep people engaged and continue seeing and feeling the value if maybe they're getting a little disengaged, that they can acknowledge and see, oh yeah, I guess I am seeing improvements in this area. So
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, that was me. I think. Wow, we have covered so much already. Yeah, you must have a very full notebook. Bless you. Have you got any other questions or any other things that you kind of wanted to discuss in a little bit more depth or ask in a little bit more depth?
I think we touched on marketing copy, and that was the only thing um, that we haven't kind of really gone into detail on, but we did discuss that. So I feel like I've got good notes regarding that already. So
Fantastic. I will pick up on a couple of things for marketing copy then, just to throw out there. What I would say is really focus on your marketing copy about the transformation and the value. I know I've said that so many times, but it's about the transformation and the value that your students are getting. So often we find in course sales pages, creators tend to focus on, this is what I'm giving you. You're giving me $100, or just for argument's sake, you're giving me $100 and I'm giving you a 2-hour course and a PDF workbook. Right, that's great, but what am I getting at the end of it? Because I can give anybody $100 and get a 2-hour course and a PDF workbook, but what am I getting from you that makes me want to give you my $100? And I know we haven't talked about pricing, I just pulled that $100 off the shelf there, but what is it that you're going to give me that's going to get me from A to B? And what I would say on that with your transformation is really nail down on what is your audience's problem, because your audience have got a problem, which is why they've come to you. So summarize in one sentence or question what your audience's problem is and pop that right at the top of your landing page. So when students come on your landing page, they've got a question that they're thinking, yes, that is me, or there's a statement that's really dragged them in. It could be anything such as, I don't know, I'm really thinking off the top of my head now, but something around, maybe they have an inability to set boundaries, or there's a very brief scenario that makes people think, yes, that's me, that's, I need this course. Well, hang on a minute, why have you answered this question? And then in your next sentence or your next statement, you're saying, this is how this course is going to help you. I am going to help you set boundaries in your life. I'm going to help you expand your self-care skills, however you want to word it. But make sure that you have got something really clear at the top, which is making students think, yeah, this is me. Because a lot of the time we land on course pages and we see the title, and the title is really lovely and it includes some keywords, but it doesn't mean anything to me as a potential student or as a potential customer. And that's when people don't engage with the course, because they're like, oh, the self-care workbook. Okay. And they click off, because that doesn't tell me anything about that self-care workbook. So drag me in, or don't drag me in, bring me in straight away with some kind of question or a statement at the top that resonates with me as your target audience and what my problem is. Tell me how you're going to solve that problem, and make sure you've got calls to action throughout your marketing copy on your landing page as well, because you need to make it easy for people to sign up to your course. So what I would say, you don't want to overdo them. You don't want every second sentence to be a sign up, because that's also off-putting, because then people start thinking, well, all you want is my email address or my money. You don't want anything from me. You're not interested in my transformation and my development. But what I would say is have a good call to action near the top. So if people are acting on impulse, yes, I've read your question, that is me, I can see your transformation in that sentence, I want to sign up right away. You're helping them sign up as soon as possible. You then are going to have a bit more description, identify your key audience. So this is a good fit for you if you're A, B, and C, and have those call to actions littered throughout your page. Peppered might be a better word, just peppered and sprinkled throughout the page, because you don't want to overdo them, but you equally want to make sure that you've got enough opportunity for people to sign up. And with that, what I would say is, once you've got your landing page written out, is read through it. I'd leave it for at least a couple of days, come back to it and read through it and think to yourself, which points would I want to say, yeah, I'm sold on this, I want to sign up, because that will start giving you an indication as to where would be good to put your enrollment buttons. And make sure there's something really snappy, call to actions, sign up now, yes, I want this, yes, I'm ready, as opposed to click here to sign up to the course and get your 6-month course. Because you see them sometimes and you're like, I haven't read this button, because it's the longest thing in the world. So you want something snappy that people can think, yes, it's really obvious what you want me to do. It's click this button. Yeah?
Snappy and simple. Got it.
Absolutely. That was like a brain dump in itself on marketing copy. Do you have any specific questions about marketing copy that you'd like to ask at the moment?
I think that you dumped a lot of great stuff on me.
I did dump a lot of stuff there, I realise.
So my brain is not coming up with any questions that you didn't already touch on.
Fantastic. But what I would say as well is make sure you have your keywords in your landing page as well. So you've got things like self-love, self-care, your boundaries, self-compassion. Think about those keywords and how they can be sprinkled through your copy as well, so that people are always remembering what your course is about and what your offering is about. But don't go overboard on the keywords either. People don't want to be seeing the same phrases every second sentence.
Right. So heavy on the, well, not super heavy, but like the keywords, and then heavy on the takeaways and the value and transformation.
Absolutely. Because as I said, people want to know, what am I as an individual? What am I getting out of this? Like I said, keep your student right at the beginning, right at the middle, of what you're doing. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to ask? I feel like that's a lot of information, and it's 7 a.m. your time, so I'd be grabbing another coffee if I were you.
My brain's on fire and ready to go for the day. I think that covered a lot of stuff and really gives me some great steps and tools to use moving forward as I continue finishing up writing a program.
Brilliant. I'm so glad you found it useful, and thank you so much for your time and for doing this. It's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed myself, so thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you so much. I am so grateful for all of your wisdom that you've just shared with me.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. And do keep in touch, because I'd love to see how your course progresses and see the eventual product as well. And it'll be really exciting to see that.
Absolutely. I'll certainly share it with you once I get it all pretty and put there.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Bloggers Creating Courses. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, leave a rating and a review. Ratings and reviews help us to reach more people who want to build and scale their online course, so you're really helping to widen the support for our blogging community. To catch all of the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram @VeritySongon. I'll see you next time. Happy content creating.